Boom, we are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is the Nolan Huckeye Anthony YouTube channel, and I thank all of you for being here wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. Full disclosure, guys, I have been sick for the past week, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but you try and power through. And and of course, I know there's some of you guys that are going to be out there saying, "Well, that's why you stay home." I get it, and that's maybe fair enough. But I would just encourage you to understand that everybody's circumstances are different. It's not a one-size-fits-all type thing where that opportunity is afforded to everybody. Now, for me, luckily, I do for my full-time job, but I was kind of going through this situation where I would get better, then I'd push it a little bit. I felt better during the day, then I went for a run at night, and then the following day I felt like garbage all over again. Really, the only thing that I pushed it probably more than I should is officiating. As you guys know, I like to do immediate post-game reactions, which I was unable to do yesterday because when I got home from working water polo games all day, which a lot of you Iowa fans have no idea what water polo is probably, or are not super familiar with it, I had to just crash out. But suffice it to say, guys, I'm going to do my best in this video. I'm still not feeling the greatest, but we're going to dive in to Iowa versus Albany week 1. This is going to be the post-game reaction. So let's start with the good. It was tremendous to see Iowa's run game pick up exactly where they left off last year. And, I always said, especially during Caleb Johnson's magical run that he had last year, I said sometimes it's hard to judge when it comes to the running back position how much of it is the running back who's just making these otherworldly plays versus how much of it is the offensive line. That's why a lot of people think that Bob Sanders, the Detroit Lions running back, is the greatest, although, I'm partial to Walter Payton, because he usually didn't have the best offensive lines. And so, not that Walter Payton did either probably, but so, I think running backs are given that credit, that little extra bit of credit. Not Bob Sanders, Barry Sanders. Shows you guys where I'm at here. So that was good. And I knew that this was going to be the case. I mean, you don't return the major pieces of your offensive line and add a year's worth of experience and have that change. And on top of that, I mean, I would be willing to go a step further, especially if Tim Lester is able to have a follow-up season where his offenses have an excellent run game, that it's part of his scheme, that he does a good job of disguising runs or creating schemes that throw the defense off and concepts, blocking schemes, the whole 9 yards. Obviously I'm not the most rehearsed in football formations and things like that, but I would imagine that would be the case. So that was good to see. Obviously, as far as the offensive line goes, Bryce George got injured. That really sucks. Kirk Ferentz didn't say what it was. It happened during warm-ups. He didn't say exactly what it was. It might have been some hand-to-hand contact or something like that. Maybe he fell down and hurt his hand. It's really unfortunate. I don't know that he would have been the starter. Although, kind of listening to how Kirk Ferentz and, I don't know. I don't think he would have been, but when I was reading what Kirk Ferentz was saying I was like, was Bryce George supposed to be the starter? Nonetheless, Trevor Lauk, aka Trevor Locke, got the start, and the Iowa offensive line looked great. They absolutely dominated, and I that was my expected starting lineup. I think that's gonna be the starting rotation until proven otherwise, and Iowa needs to try something else out. But I think that's probably gonna be what it is. Hopefully Jack Dotzler doesn't get, because I do think he's talented. He came to Iowa as a smaller, more athletic guy, which is kind of what George Barnett likes. Hopefully he can kind of take this practice and, really get ready for next year in manning down the right tackle spot. Or who knows, maybe Trevor can move over to the right and he goes left, as he is a little bit taller. On top of that, Xavier Williams, man, this guy, when people described him, they were talking about how like big he is and how big his thighs are, which all of it is true. But the guy can move. The dude can move. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when I saw him break away those couple of runs, I was like, holy crap, this guy has some explosiveness. Is he the most shifty side to side? Probably not, but he does move alarmingly well for a guy his size. And that's usually like the guys his size, that's the hurdle that they have to overcome in order to become like really, special running backs. But it's just so crazy to think with the running back room, same thing as last year. We thought that it was going to be Kamari Moulton that was going to be the starter. Yet again, Kamari Moulton is losing the starting position. Possibly. I mean, it just goes to show you never really know. And I think in this day and age in football, because they don't tackle in practice anymore, this is why you're seeing the coaches not as sure concerning who's the best running back and who's not. Because the only way you're going to find out who the best running back is by seeing them in full padded action. I mean, that's all there is to it. So hopefully Kamari Moulton, Kirk Ferentz didn't seem too concerned about it. Hopefully he can be back relatively soon. I wouldn't be optimistic for the Iowa State game, but based on what we saw, I mean, again, Iowa's running back room is really healthy. It's got a lot of depth, and I think Xavier Williams may have catapulted himself into running back one. To be a running back one, you need to have something about you that just like separates you from the pack. Whether that's speed, whether that's vision, whether that's agility. And for Iowa, it seems most of the time, because, the super fast and athletic guys go to Ohio State and stuff, usually it is the bigger backs. To me, Xavier Williams reminds me of LaShawn Daniels, if you guys remember him. Torin Young a little bit. Just as far as like stature goes, I do think Xavier Williams is a lot more explosive than Torin Young. But yeah, I mean, and it was good to see Nathan McNeil. He does not look like a freshman. He looks ready to go. Terrell Washington Jr. looked good. The whole running back room looked good. Let me get the stats pulled up here. And then, good as well. Iowa's defense looked pretty good as a whole. I wouldn't say that they dominated. But, Phil Parker's defenses are not made to dominate in the same way as, like, maybe other defenses. He very much does have, deploy the bend but don't break mentality. So it may seem like you're getting the best of the Iowa defense, but in reality, you only have 7 points on the board, you know? So, so let's look up the player stats here. Rushing, Xavier Williams had 122 yards, 11.1 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Terrell Washington Jr. had 69. Josiah Patterson had 47 with a 6.7 average. Mark Gronowski had 39 on 11 carries. Kamari Moulton had 22. Nathan McNeil had 14 yards. And Kamari Moulton was averaging 7.3 yards per carry. You know, it's too bad. But if it ends up being like a Kamari Moulton and Xavier Williams type thing, like what's wrong with that? You know, it's a good two-headed monster. The running back room is in a good, healthy position. Iowa didn't get any interceptions. They did get 2 sacks with Aaron Graves and Max Llewellyn. Again, like I said, the defense didn't, they didn't have multiple takeaways and win this game for Iowa, or, this wasn't the best defensive performance that I've ever seen from the Iowa Hawkeyes, but they did just fine. I mean, this was a solid first game. They limited them to 7 points. By the way, guys, was I not spot on? I should have said this at the beginning of the video. I predicted, there was all these outlets, Hawk Insider, Hawk Fanatic, whatever the case may be, saying that the score was going to be 45-3, 52-2. I said my you guys can go back and look at the game preview. My prediction was 35-7. Why did I make that prediction? One, because Iowa almost always gives up at least 1 touchdown defensively. They do end up breaking at least once. And I knew that the offense, and this, I'm going to circle back. I'll circle back to that point. But that was my prediction. That last point I'm going to circle back to. But it was 34-7. I was 1 point off. I mean, that, what can I say, guys? What can I say? I am, I got to pat myself on the back. That's, I'm usually pretty good at predicting Iowa football scores. I'm not perfect. But, okay, so let's get to the bad. And I'm going to make my point here that I was just about to make. Or the poor, or the needs more work side of things. When I came up with my prediction, even though I wanted to believe that the Iowa offense had absolutely taken a step forward, especially in the passing game. I wanted to believe it so badly. And yes, we did see some signs. And yes, it may even end up being a decent passing attack. I knew week 1 it was gonna be much of the same regarding what we have seen. Mark Gronowski reported that he was very antsy. He got himself pretty worked up about this game. Kirk Ferentz likened it to Drew Tate. Drew Tate, how he thinks. He got to like a halftime of one game and was totally burnt because mentally he gets himself going so much. You just can't sustain it. Now, I don't know that Mark Gronowski is the same way, in the same manner. But I am willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But just to finish my last point, again, when it comes to the Iowa media, you have to be careful, and this is why you need to watch my channel. You have to be careful about believing the narrative. I always say, take a cautiously optimistic approach to the Iowa Hawkeye offense. That's, at this point, that's just what you got to do. Until proven otherwise, just like Iowa basketball and defense when Fran McCaffrey was there, that's what you have to do. So anyways, I made that point. I'm willing to give Gronowski the benefit of the doubt for this game. Moving forward, not so much. And yes, I'm willing to give him a little leeway, considering he was out for a decent portion. Again, not a ton of leeway, but some leeway. Because at the end of the day, he's a football player. He's supposed to be a talented football player. Iowa went out and paid a lot of money for him. He's got to produce. So I am willing to give him like a game one. Fine. No, okay. We have a clean slate. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And that's kind of the approach I'm taking. And I think you guys should take that approach too, because I've seen a lot of fans that are commenting like in the highlights videos and various other things. Oh, same old Iowa offense can't cloud of smoke and a fucking cloud of smoke and whatever. Can't pass the football. It's never gonna change. Two dusts and a cloud of smoke. It's never gonna change until Kirk Ferentz is gone. And one of the comments said that he's gonna be gone next year. And I did a video on that. I haven't heard anything about that. He still looks great for his age. I honestly would be surprised if he leaves after this year. I think he's got at least one more year in him. So, with that said, guys, just give this one game grace. I don't think that that's too much. I'm not saying that you need to wait 4 or 5 games to see if things. One game is not that crazy, and it is pretty normal, even for the Ohio States of the world, for things in week 1 to need some ironing out, to need some practice. So, now with that said, my analysis of Mark Gronowski. Oh, by the way, guys, special teams, I forgot to mention this. Special teams look great. Drew Stevens, Reese Dakin, I fully expect them to be on pace to compete for All-American status. And even Sam Phillips back there look great. We'll see what happens. Kirk Ferentz joked that Sam Phillips, that they joked with Caden Wedgson that Sam Phillips, that job might be up for grabs, the returner position. Man, I feel bad for Caden Wedgson. It's like, dang, he had to be convinced to come back to have a larger role, even though he did have a touchdown pass. I think it was mostly as a wide receiver to take on the larger role. But man, the guy just can't catch a break. So anyways, Mark Gronowski, the analysis. He did not make one throw that I was like, wow. That was a great throw. Like, if you go and watch Ohio State versus Texas and watch all the highlights, you can see why Arch Manning is Arch Manning. Because there were a few throws that he made throughout that day, which, by the way, did he maybe have better options to throw it to? Yes, there was one in particular where he had cover 2 on the boundary, and there was a guy streaking this way. It was more boxed in over here that he could have thrown it to. But still, I mean, he put it just where it needed to. He put it on a line in that guy's hands. Just boom, right there. He found where only the tight end could go and get that. And then the same thing earlier in the game. There was one that he threw a touchdown pass on a boundary. He scrambled a little bit, and the body positioning on the throw, and then just to see the ball itself, the spin of the ball, just how perfect of a throw it was with draped coverage on the wide receiver. You can see why Arch Manning is Arch Manning. I don't think Mark Gronowski made any of those throws. I don't think Mark Gronowski against Albany made what I would consider an NFL caliber throw. Now, obviously, in the NFL, there's a bunch of easy throws that hopefully you can make and check down. But I'm talking like, a throw that only you can make because you're at NFL level, possibly an NFL level, quarterback that has the arm talent to get it there. And even if you don't want to use that example, like, there was not one throw that I saw that I was like, dang, what a throw, Gronowski. Like, remember Nate Stanley when Iowa played Ohio State, and Nate Stanley had, a player draped on his foot, and he threw it on a line in the back of the end zone to TJ Hawkinson, I think it was. It was either him or Noah Fant. Like, that's a big-time throw. And I didn't really see any of those from Mark Gronowski. I would say the best throw that Mark Gronowski had, because I saw Big Ten Network actually did like all of his major plays. He went 8 of 15 for 44 yards and 1 touchdown. Receiving, Jacob Gill 1 for 13, Seth Anderson 2 for 9, Addison Ostrangle 1 for 8, Hayden Large 1 for 6, Zach Ortworth 1 for 5, so pretty much the same across the board. Caden Wetchton 1 for 2 with 1 touchdown. So they did that. I'm trying to pull it up again, which was good. They did a top plays. The throw on the boundary when Iowa was in scoring position to Jacob Gill across the field, that was probably the best throw that I had for him all day. Him being able to run the ball, we all knew that he was going to be able to do that. He's a physical runner. Yes, he's got some speed, but I would say he's mostly a physical runner. I'm a little bit concerned about it because I don't. Yes, Kirk Ferentz commented on it being something that they know he can do, and they like that he can do, and it's good to have that added element. But in Big Ten play, those hits are going to be bigger, they're going to be louder, they're going to be stronger. I don't know that Mark Gronowski can run 10 plus, 10, at least 10 times every single game. I think that might be too much. I would like to dial it back to like 5 to 10. And I think that him running the ball 11 times showed his antsiness. The second best throw I probably had for him, or I clocked for him, probably was the touchdown throw to Caden Wetchton. It wasn't the toughest throw in the world, but yes, it was a crossing route. It was in motion. There was a player that was on Caden Wetchton. It was a quick decision. He had to throw it where only Caden Wetchton could get it, down and low. And, that's a good heady play by the quarterback. But yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the running. It even took its toll against Albany. Like every single time I'm like, is he hurt? Oh, but he has done it a lot. But obviously it took its toll, which is why he had to have surgery. So, if he wants to develop into that next level quarterback, he needs to have it be a part of his bag, not a staple in his bag. He needs to do it when there's no other option. But his main skill set needs to become as a passer. So that's pretty much it, guys. If I had to grade Mark Gronowski, the throw to Jacob Gill, it was third quarter, 6:22 left. It was a 3rd and 10, and Mark Gronowski was in shotgun, and he ripped it across field. Again, he was mostly open. Jacob Gill was mostly open, but that's still not the easiest ball to throw. So if I had to grade Mark Gronowski, I think almost all the completions that he made were fairly easy pitch and catch throws to make, of fairly open individuals. I didn't clock him having any like major like wow A+ throws right there, like A+ read, A+ throw. What a dime that was. If I just grade him as a quarterback as a whole, getting the W, his running and passing, I'd probably give him a C, maybe a C-, probably a C, because it wasn't like terrible. But as a passer, I'd probably give it a D, a D-. Like, he can do better. He needs to do better. Now, the good news is Kirk Ferentz was fairly confident that, he's confident in Mark Gronowski. He sounds very confident that Mark Gronowski is a good quarterback. So, I'm gonna try and trust Kirk Ferentz, but at the same time, if I remember correctly, he was saying a lot of the same stuff about Cade McNamara. I don't think he was this complimentary, but the head coach is not going to go up there and spell disaster towards the fan base that he's super concerned. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. But going all the way back to camp, he has multiple times said that this kid is a good quarterback. So I'm going to choose to trust him until proven otherwise, and proven otherwise would be we're 3 weeks into the season, and it's much of the same against Albany. So, all right, guys, that's pretty much it for me. That is my post game. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Got a big game against Iowa State. It's gonna be a tough one on the road. I do think Iowa has the talent. I think it's going to be a pretty evenly matched game. I always believe Iowa has more talent because they do. They recruit better. It's just Kirk Ferentz in Iowa has a tendency to do like Kirk Ferentz in Iowa things against Iowa State, And it's not to say that Iowa State doesn't have talent. This is probably a fairly evenly matched game. It's too bad Reese Vanderzee is out. Hopefully, Kirk Ferentz said it sounds like it's week to week. We'll see. It would be great to have that. That's like the one thing Iowa is missing. Jarriett Bowie was out. Like they need. Tim Lester doesn't seem to value it above all else. But obviously, even Tim Lester knows that having a big-bodied threat that can go up and get 50-50 balls is very helpful. You can't teach a 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver that can run like Reese Vanderzee. So I would have loved to have seen Dayton Howard in this game against Albany. Maybe he did have some snaps. Jarriett Bowie, like I said, was injured. Hopefully he's okay for next week. It seems Tim Lester values speed above everything else rather than a traditional, Z slot X. Rather he's just looking for speed out there. So anyways, guys, I will do the game preview here either today or tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Labor Day. Iowa wins 35. Was it 34? 34-7. I said it was going to be 35-7. Xavier Williams has a huge day, simply huge. Like I said, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy, will out in facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you, Hawk fans. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.